Hi there, welcome back to the Land Whisperer channel. My name is Chris, I'm a writer of short stories and I'm also a spiritual land worker. Now I apologise for my rather sweaty appearance. It's a real scorcher out there today and I've been doing some work amongst the barrows which I'll talk about in a second. But I'm really grateful to have found some shade here amongst the sycamore tree leaves and it's really a blessing. But if I do have to wipe my brow halfway through, I do apologise. Anyway, back to the video as it were. Last week we were at Ebbw Gorge, which is a lovely little limestone gorge on the south side of the Mendip Hills, and it was a place where our Mesolithic ancestors were prevalent and they came there to hunt. I also read you a short story called Love Conquers All, which comes from a set of short stories that I wrote about the Mesolithic period, all about the lives of our hunter-gatherers. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, please do leave me a comment. I hope it's a nice comment. But if you didn't actually see it, then please go back and find that video. It's just simply called Ebbw Gorge. I'm sure that won't be difficult to find. Now, this week, I've brought you to the Mendip Hills, and in particular, Priddy Barrow Cemetery. And Priddy Barrow Cemetery is a very ancient landscape. We're in the upland areas here in the Mendip Hills, and like most places in Britain which are in upland areas, the fields' edges are made by stone walls, and the farm buildings themselves are made from the local stone, and it has a real rustic and bucolic charm to it. Everything feels ancient up here, and that's because it is. People have been living up in the Mendip Hills in a straight line from the Mesolithic period about 10,000 years ago all the way up to the modern day, and every period of history and prehistory can be found in the area. At the cemeteries, as it were, we are dealing with a rather specific period of time in history, which is called the Bronze Age. Now, most of the videos that I've been doing so far have been dealing with 10,000 years ago, or the Neolithic period, which is around about 4,000 to 2,500. So the period in between that and the Bronze Age. But these barrows out here in the field, they are of Bronze Age design. In the Neolithic, you will recall that we have long barrows and with an entrance at the end or the side, depending on where you are in the country. But these ones are round. Some of them have a ditch around them, but most of them are just a convex a series of boulders and stones that go on top, and it's all set in a round design. That's very specifically Bronze Age. Archaeologists believe that there are people buried in there, that they've excavated people from those barrows, and where they have excavated those barrows where the people are in, usually they are associated with a set of grave goods which show these individuals to be high status or high net worth individuals as far as Bronze Age standards are concerned. The grave goods are usually of metal, so things like bronze or tin or even gold. It really depends. And the Bronze Age in itself is a period of time that set us apart from the Stone Age, where tools were now metal, bronze. And the bronze was created in this country from the tin mines down in Cornwall, because it's copper and tin that you need in order to make bronze. And therefore, Britain became a really important set of real estate for people to actually move into. And you can see the designs of these Bronze Age barrows up here for all to see. The barrows themselves are set into two sets of alignments. So you've got a set of 9 in the south, in a kind of semi-arc, and a set of 8 in the north, which is set off like that. The people of the south, I got a feeling when I was doing the walk through in a Reiki flow walk, I got the feeling that they were people of a little bit more purity, a little bit more grace to them, and had maybe a little bit more divine in their purpose and their alignment. compared to the people in the north, which were really just the complete opposite. I think, they had pretty poor behavioural attributes. I'll talk about that in the download that I did when I walked through, and I'll share with you exactly what I had. Now, it doesn't make for very pleasant hearing or listening, but I feel I have to be truthful to you when I'm doing a walk through and doing some spiritual work in the area. I have to be truthful about what I find. So I have made the language more graceful, but the behaviour that they exhibited was not particularly pleasant. But I've done my best to keep it clean because I view YouTube as a kind of rather family-friendly kind of a platform, and I'd like to keep it that way on this channel as best I can. Anyway, what I would say about this alignment of the two sets of barrows, I should say simply, first of all, that the south set of barrows, they're on private land, so I couldn't really do any work, some detailed work, and I'd love to go back and do that at another point in time. But the people, or the barrows on the north set, they have a public footpath that runs straight by them, so I could get access to them and walk around them, etc., whilst I was doing the Reiki flow. The other thing to say about these is their alignment is roughly, and I mean roughly, southeast to northwest, both sets, the south and the north. And the southeast is a really important direction because it represents, to these people who don't have electricity, who don't have any form of our conveniences at all, they only have the natural world around them, it represents a period of time in the year where at the winter solstice, you see the sun rise for the first time. It's like their new year, if you like. So it's a really important marker point for them to know where they are in terms of their seasonality. And it's important in the world out there in other periods of time. Places like Newgrange in Ireland, where you see the sunrise going into that chambered tomb, and it goes right into the chamber right at the back, and it lights up the whole chamber at the back. Also at Karahan Tepe in southeast Turkey, which had a chamber doing pretty much the same type of thing. In a very different culture, but it was set about 13 to maybe 14,000 BC. So very much older than the barrows here at Priddy. Nonetheless, the barrows here at Priddy, it seems that the first barrows on both sets, the north and the south, the first barrows were created in the southeast and the last were done in the northwest. And so it runs in a continuous line, if you like. Anyway, that's where I think I'm going to leave it for now. And I'm going to read to you now the report of the download that I received when I was out there working on the land. And when we come back, once you've listened to what they had to say, I'll talk a little bit more about the work that I do out there in the land so that you have a greater understanding of it. So that's where I'm going to leave it now. And I will see you very shortly. Okay, bye for now. So, starting in the southeast corner of the northern set of barrows, at barrow number 1, here's what I received from the first barrow. The barrow belongs to a warrior by the name presented to me as Adrek the Mighty. He was a large man, and he lived between 1856 and 1793 BC. Remember that this is the Bronze Age. At the age of 15, he went on a coming-of-age trial to rustle as many sheep from the other clans to the north as he could. Sheep raiding was a common pastime amongst those that were training to become warriors. He stole a great many sheep and beat the warrior champions who guarded them from the rival clans in single combat, which was a big thing in the Bronze Age. This won him the right to marry into the mighty and very worthy Priddy Barrow clan, or community, to the south. This move was very prestigious to Adrec's clan from the north. He believed that he would be ruler of a long dynasty. His wife-to-be was the sister of the current queen of the Priddy Barrow community in the south. And his wife gave birth to a daughter called Celia, again the name presented to me. However, at some stage, Adrec's wife died. I couldn't find out how or when. What Adrec then told me was that there were not many available women to him to remarry, and as leader, it was expected that he did so. Lonely and bereft by the loss of his first wife, he was tended to by his daughter Celia. When she became of age, Adrec took his own daughter to be his new wife. This act did not go down well with Celia nor with the southern community, but because Adrec was such a skilled warrior, no one else could challenge him in the area. Adrec, however, would fall from grace still further. Barrow II. Celia and Adrec had 2 children, Cadmus and Cecilia, both again the names presented to me. Before he died, Adrec made the siblings marry and consummate the marriage, and according to Adrec, this would ensure a pure bloodline for his descendants. Cecilia, the daughter, despised her brother Cadmus for not being strong enough to challenge their father, and the shame of their marriage lived on to their deaths. Barrow number 3. Cadmus and Cecilia, nonetheless, had a son called Adrec the Wise, who inherited his grandfather's build but not his temperament. He married a woman from outside of the area, and they did not have children. He had married her because she was barren. Such was the shame that Adrec the Wise had to live with, as did his own community, that he was determined to end the line of descent. Barrow number 4. There was an extended period between the rule of Adrec the Wise and the 4th ruler called Marsalis, again the name presented to me. Marsalis was a fair-minded man and was the brother of the southern clan's current queen consort. Like Adrec the Wise, he married a woman from outside of the area. Her name was Lily. Neither of them really wanted to rule because of the distasteful legacy left behind. The throne of the northern community was a poisoned chalice. Nonetheless, they loved each other very dearly, but they produced a severely disabled son. Lily and Marsalis both felt guilty about not wanting the kingship, enough to change the DNA of their future child, and he was born disabled. Soon after, Marsalis passed away and was buried in Barrow number 4. Barrow number 5. Lily, as queen ruler, was heartbroken by her husband's death. The community would not let the kingship fall to a disabled son. They needed a strong leader. So they forced the issue of marriage on Lily, and she remarried to a strong warrior. The disabled son died shortly after her remarriage, leaving her to grieve her first husband and her son. Soon after, however, she did have a second son called Melgrim. He grew up to be a powerful warrior, but one that was forever hurt that his mother, Lily, did not show her affection openly towards him. He grew up without her love, and this festered in his heart to reveal itself later in life as misogyny. Barrow number 6. Melgrim married, but hated his wife, seeing only a victim to punish, all because he'd never had his mother's love. He had 2 daughters by her, Anea and Cynthia, names again as presented to me. He pushed his wife away from him and concocted a story of infidelity, and he had her killed, even though he knew in his heart there was absolutely no truth to it. Of the 2 of his daughters, Cynthia grew up feral, wild, and with an equal hatred of men. For Melgrim wedded his daughter off to a weak-willed man, a poet of no renown, and in the Bronze Age that was a vile insult to the Moras of the time. Barrow number 7. Cynthia loathed her father, but went through with the marriage and bore a son and a daughter. To thwart Melgrim, she made Sarah the ruler to follow her, for the son was not strong enough. He had actually gained the characteristics of his father, the poet, so in the eyes of the community, the son was too weak to hold the throne. Barrow number 8. Sarah married a man also called Melgrim, but of no relation to her grandfather. They had a daughter called Elwyn. Of course, this set of people's lives could not end happily. Needless to say, Melgrim the husband started to have intimate relations with his daughter Elwyn. Because of the previous shame of Adric the Mighty's dynasty, the community had to put a stop to it once and for all. In the end, Sarah, Melgrim, and Elwyn all lost their lives, and the shame of the dynasty was finally ended. Well, hi there, welcome back. Where do you start with that? Well, first of all, I did warn you that, of course, the behaviour that they exhibited, that they went into, was rather unsavoury. I've done, as I said, my best to keep the language surrounding that as graceful as possible. I think that's important. Not least because I don't wish to perpetuate negativity. And I think it's really important, and I'm going to talk about emotions first of all here. That unsavoury behaviour, the way we think as humans, the way we feel as humans, all of that at all the time it just is extruded from us out into the energetic landscape. Remember, I see the world as an energy worker, that everything is energy, including the rocks, including the bedrock. Everything is energy, some more dense than others. But that energy, through our thoughts and through our emotions, flows out of us and actually gets embedded into the landscape, into the rocks, into the walls of the fields around here. And that unsavoury behaviour has been radiating out negativity across the whole of the landscape from those barrows for thousands of years. Now, my job as a spiritual land worker, as a healer, is to come in and remove that negativity, to transmute the negativity into something far more positive. So the information I got through those barrows was pure-hearted. That's what I received. And I knew I had to clear each and every person's energy from those barrows in order to allow the land around it and those people who reside in those barrows, their memories, if you like, to be lifted from the earth and transmuted into something positive. So it allows the spirits of the dead to rest for the first time in millennia. It also stops the pumping out into the world for us as the living, all of that negativity. And I think what I would want to say here is when you're walking past those barrows, as people have done for many generations, all of that negativity has an unseen effect on the individual walking past or walking by or living in the area. It perpetuates negativity, and we begin to think bad thoughts, or we begin to exhibit bad emotional behaviour. And it just goes on and on and on. And so that's why it's so important for us as humans to be mindful of what our thoughts are thinking and what we're actually doing and how we're actually behaving. If we push into the world those negative energies, those negative emotions, then you are perpetuating this place being miserable. If, by contrast, you pump into the world love and happiness and an uplifting kind of feeling, which is what I try my best to do. I fail at every corner, but I do my best to do that. Then I think we have a chance collectively of actually changing the environment in which we live, the local area certainly, and by extension, the wider world. So anyway, the work I did out there, I transmuted all of the energy that I could from a negative to a positive source, which means that now the land can have a bit of a rest. There's a kind of breathing space, if you like. The souls of the dead have got their rest. The land and the people living here in the landscape now can just breathe a sigh of relief. They won't know that it's happened, but maybe over 2 to 3 years, they will begin to feel happier in themselves, less stressed, less willing to entertain negativity in their souls, in their bodies, in their hearts. And that's my sincere wish. Now, what I can say is that my guides, my spiritual guides, which are Syrian, they are from the Aquilon constellation, they're from the Cygnus constellation, and they're also from a group of people from the Scutum constellation, and they call themselves now, it's a long story, but they call themselves now the Scions. And those guides from up there have been really, really generous with their time and their information. And they have said to me that the work that I did there out amongst the barrows has actually worked. So we can hope for better times in the Mendip Hills for the people around Priddy and for everybody who comes to walk through them. Anyway, next week I'm going to take you to Burrington Combe and to a cave once again that is important to the Mesolithic period, because it's a cave where lots and lots of people were actually buried over a very long time, and I will go and talk about that when we get there next week. So until then, may I pass you, as always, unconditional love. May you think positive thoughts, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye for now.